Well, everybody, welcome to World Youth Day Rocks. I apologize for the delay. Yes, we are live. Thanks for joining us here in Lisbon on this beautiful evening, hanging out with my good friend, Dr. Aaron Davis. Thank you so much for joining. How's Lisbon been for you so far?
I just got in yesterday, so still getting used to the time change, and so far it's been beautiful. We've had great weather. It is not hot here, which I think is the most exciting thing for a lot of people around the world to hear, and it's just beautiful, beautiful Europe.
Yeah, one of the things that's very important for pilgrims to understand is like when you travel abroad, right? Anytime you go from one country to another, you're changing a time zone. And there will be some adjustments that need to happen, right? There's the adjustments of the weather, of course, as Aaron talked about. But there's also the adjustments of food. There's adjustment of time clock. Your body doesn't do so well, and sometimes adjusting. One of the things I'm also finding interesting is like the amount of walking we're doing here in Lisbon. The terrain is a lot different from a normal typical city. What would you say is something that is very interesting that you've seen so far in our walking around the city and getting a feel for Lisbon itself?
So two things, especially if you're coming from someplace like the United States with really nice sidewalks. So the pedestrian walkways here along the roads, they're very uneven, shiny surface rocks, and it seems to be a theme through everything. And they can be pretty slick, and they're uneven, so it's not perfectly lined up like we're used to. It's almost like subway tile, but it's very pretty, but sometimes it can be slippery, especially if it's wet or if there's dust on it. And then the second thing that I noticed is the hills. There are plenty of hills here. It's an old city, and so they just kept building on the hills, and it gives it beautiful character, but it can wear you out. So I think making sure you have steady footing while you're planning to walk through here, and also watching your step. One other bonus foot adventure for you is that sometimes there's little curbs that kind of pop up, or even in some of the accommodations, there's uneven little areas between two rooms. And so it's a good idea to just always watch where you're going to walk and keep an eye on your footwear too, especially if you're thinking about wearing some loose footwear. I'd probably wear more athletically oriented shoes to get through the hills and the uneven surfaces.
That's a really good point, because just the other day I was walking into a building and I literally almost floored it. Like I didn't find, there was a little crack and my foot got stuck in there, and then I almost fell forward, and someone was like, "Dude, are you okay? Did you eat enough, or did you drink enough fluids?" I'm like, "I'm fine. I'm sorry." The floor is uneven, and you're right. It is. You're going to see a lot of interesting things. As regarding footwear, because that's something that's very important. A lot of people don't realize, like when you pack for World Youth Day, I'm sure that some people are just going to be like, I'm just going to pack my flip-flops, right? Because it's like pilgrimage. I'm going to wear like Jesus sandals and just go with my Birkenstocks. Like, not that I am promoting Birkenstocks for World Youth Day, but there are people out there that will go crazy and just wear Jesus sandals. Like, what besides footwear that's very important, like with athletic shoes, like what kind of soles or what kind of socks? I mean, we're going to be walking an average of 7 miles. That's about almost 10 kilometers per day.
Yep.
Like, so what do you recommend?
Well, you definitely want a good sole. So I'm wearing these fancy shoes just because I'm on camera right now, and they've got a smooth sole. These would be terrible to be walking around town right now. I'm sure there are very classy Europeans who can wear this style on these stones, but I certainly cannot. So you want something that has a good athletic tread on it, and that could even be an athletic sandal, right? So if you're insisting on wearing a sandal, make sure you have something that secures your heel. And you want to have something that has some tread, because we can't predict the weather. We can't predict if it's going to rain or not. And with dry, dusty conditions that we have here, a lot of those tiles are a bit slippery from the dust. And so even though it's not wet, it can still be slippery. So those grooves in the bottom of your shoes help quite a lot to get good grip. And then as far as socks go, the big thing we'd be concerned about is blisters. A lot of people like to do the walk towards the end of the event. Yeah, and so that can be pretty hard on your heels, your toes. So people tend to get blisters. In general, if you're a hiker, you know this, but you don't want to wear cotton socks. You probably want to wear some synthetic socks or some wool socks, because those just tend to help with moisture and decreasing blisters. If you have to wear cotton socks, bring a change of socks, because then you can change from your sweaty, hot socks into some cooler, dry socks, and that could help prevent those blisters as well.
So, while you're on the topic of footwear too, break these shoes in before you come to World Youth Day. Like, I don't know anybody who decides to buy new shoes and says, I'm not touching these until we get on the flight. They're going to stay in my bag, and stay nice and fresh, and I'm just going to open these up when I arrive at World Youth Day. And then you realize that these are not good shoes to walk in. So definitely break them in. And then would you recommend them wearing them on the plane?
Yeah, I mean, you can wear what's comfortable on the plane. If you had to choose between brand new shoes that you went to REI and got the day before you get on the plane, or your old running shoes, I would choose your broken-in running shoes. Something that's comfortable, that you know exactly how it's going to wear on your feet, and use those. Unless they're completely shiny and have holes in them, then you could probably afford a new pair of shoes.
Yeah, I was looking at the weather the other day, and it definitely doesn't look like it's going to rain any time of the part that we're going to be here. But the marine layer is concerning. I had a couple questions that were emailed to me about the marine layer. Is the marine layer something normal here in Lisbon? And yes, in the morning, you will find it very damp. You'll find it very slick road conditions. The stones are very smooth because it's been walked on for so long. And yeah, you might slip. You might have some issues walking with them. But if you have good shoes, that's a good start. What about clothes? So we were talking about a couple days ago in our last show on episode 59. We were talking about what to bring to World Youth Day. But feeling like the evening, like right now, it's pretty darn cold. I mean, it's not hot, but it's not super cold. It's definitely breezy. And for a lot of you guys that are going to be at the festivals until about 11 p.m., you're going to be going home to your location, whether it's the hotels or the hostels or the local accommodations that you guys are staying with in this weather. It's breezy. So jacket, no jacket, sweater, what do you recommend?
I think people know their temperature range. Some people run hot, some people run cold. I think regardless, it's at least a good idea to pack a lightweight windbreaker with you, because right now we have a really nice breeze, I think. But if you're wearing a thin t-shirt or something like that, it's not going to work out well if you can't stop that barrier. When I came up here to test the evening, I had just on a lightweight polo, and I ended up putting this sweater on over it. It's a very lightweight sweater, and I'm pretty comfortable. That being said, I'm somebody who runs really hot. I get hot really easy, and I love it when it's cool. So you know your range. So don't be afraid to bring a little bit more clothing with you to have the ability to layer. You don't have to come out bundled in an Eskimo jacket, but it's good to have some options. You might find that it's really warm in the day, and so you decide, I don't need a jacket, I don't need a sweater or anything like that. It's a good idea to just pack it in your bag. Have a little pullover, or have a windbreaker with you, or a rain jacket that you can have just to cut the wind, and then you have your options for the whole time.
Yeah, before we get into the next topic, of course, if any of you guys are watching this live and you have a question or something that you want us to address about Lisbon or about World Youth Day, please feel free to leave that in the comment section. We will address them, whether it's live or later on as we go through this event here, live here from Lisbon. I just want to remind people about the importance of this great event that's coming up in about a week. We are going to be gathering 1 week from today, today being Tuesday, July 25th, the Feast of St. James. Which is for you and I both is a great feast, considering the fact we both did the Camino, different times of course, but it's such a cool thing to think about, about this adventure that we're on, this pilgrimage that we're on. In about a week, many people from all over the world are going to be gathering to encounter Christ Jesus in each other, in the church, in the Eucharist, at adoration, at the masses, but most importantly, through the successor of St. Peter, who will be joining us on Wednesday of next week, flying in from Rome. So it's an exciting moment, but at the same time, we also have to consider health-wise, what is going on in our bodies as all these emotions and all these excitements and all these movements are going to happen. So I figured today that we would be also talking about eating properly at World Youth Day. So tell us a little bit about your experience. You went to World Youth Day in Panama, and you saw, as a doctor, you saw all sorts of interesting things. How important is food at World Youth Day?
It's pretty important, depending on how you choose to have to the vigil. If you're going to have a hot, vigorous day after day, it's probably not the best idea to skimp on food. Also consider if you have any medical conditions. If you're somebody who's really prone to getting hypoglycemic, and you know who you are, you should probably pack some snacks. A lot of people
like what kind of snacks you suggest? I mean, like
trail mix, classic, like some nuts and some fruit.
Nuts and fruit. Okay.
Yeah, some. I mean, there's 1,000 options for protein bars, for energy bars. You can pack some lightweight snacks. You don't. If you're somebody who doesn't like to eat a lot, you have those options. If you're someone who likes to eat a lot, you can pack sandwiches and that sort of thing. But I really want to talk to people who are focusing on having a very concentrated spiritual experience, particularly people who are fasting.
Yeah.
You have to drink water, and if you are going to choose to do the fast and you're going to drink water, you should probably put a little bit of pinch of salt or some electrolyte mix into that water, because you're going to sweat a lot in the heat and the direct sun, and hour after hour after hour that starts to accumulate, and you don't want to just be drinking straight water. You want to have a little bit of salt in there. We hear about marathoners who are drinking a lot of water and they drown during the race, and what that means is that those people are drinking a lot of water without any salt. And if you and I'm not saying like pour a bunch of salt in your water, I'm just talking like a pinch of salt or an electrolyte replacement or some kind of sports supplement. You just have to have a little bit of something, because it's not good for your nerves and your brain and your blood if you don't have those salts in it, because you lose those while you sweat. Everybody knows that salt is sweaty, or sweat is salty, and so you want to make sure that you're having something that replaces that salt loss. So you'll start to get cramps, you'll start to get really fatigued and tired, you'll feel really miserable, and it will just make your this thing that you come to celebrate and enjoy and have a good time through your experience, you might make it so miserable that you are not enjoying the experience, or you could end up in the hospital because you're having some kind of electrolyte imbalance. So it's really important to consider the entire nutritional complement. I know some people are gonna have that fasting experience, but just be smart about it, be careful about it. Nobody wants you to put your health at risk while you're trying to do something for yourself. So
yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of emotional experiences while you're here at World Youth Day. I mean, you're going to be encountering Christ in each other. You're going to be encountering Christ in the Eucharist and adoration, a lot of the festivals, the music, the speakers, the Mass, seeing the Holy Father. There's a lot of emotional things that go on, and that drains someone, mentally. Then the food options. Like, I remember in the last World Youth Day thinking to myself, like, how come I can't find a line that is short enough to get my food in a reasonable time, right? Like, everyone's going to get out of the main session, and everyone's probably going to go to the same restaurants or same food places, and you might not be able to eat the food you want. And let's say, for example, you're craving a hamburger because you're just like, I went to Europe and I want to try McDonald's or Burger King at every country, right? And maybe you're that type of soup, but all of a sudden you realize I can't eat it there. And there's not a food place for another like half-hour walk. And then the food options don't look that exciting, and so you decide, I'm not going to eat. How dangerous is that?
Well, it depends on your level of danger. I've dealt with many hangry people before, and it's more dangerous to me. And so what I would say is plan ahead, right? So sometimes things can be unpredictable. Lines is a great example.
Yeah.
And so, before I was talking about having some, trail mix, having some little energy bar, just put one in your bag and leave it as that emergency fire extinguisher. If you're